As nations push towards decarbonisation and reducing emissions, achieving net zero in every facet of business is more important than ever. So, why not harness an active facade solution, which can reduce operational carbon and create clean energy on-site while achieving financial payback? I'm joined now by ClearVue's Chief Commercial Officer, Earle Harper, to tell us more about solar facade technology and how it's helping buildings move towards net zero energy goals. Earle, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So can you start by telling us what is solar facade technology and how does it work?
So ClearVue Technologies, first and foremost, is a technology company. We have IP that enables electricity to be generated from a clear glass window. And when combined with complementary IP, we can in effect turn the whole facade of a building into a solar array, really providing a path to a net zero building. How does it work? So our IP, we're specifically within the window. Light hits the window. We have a nanoparticle interlayer within the glass. It identifies the ultraviolet and infrared light and pushes it to the side of the window. Within the window itself, we've got some solar arrays, which harvests the electricity. Then the customer can use that electricity as they please.
And how does it help buildings move towards net zero energy goals?
So this is the interesting world in which we live in. Pretty much most countries around the world have actually signed up to something that resembles a net zero environment for their built and basically the economy. When you consider just how much electricity is actually consumed by the built environment, so the buildings that you and I are both in right now, being able to create electricity autonomously on site is a very important ingredient to actually being able to achieve net zero. Our technology enables us to create electricity to power the operations of the actual building. Our technology has a thermal property which enables the cooling requirements of the building to be lowered. This has actually been independently tested by BCA in Singapore. So not only do we create electricity, but we should actually be saving electricity, thereby presenting a path to actually generating a net zero energy building.
So what is the current market demand for solar facades and where is the biggest growth opportunity?
So there's really two parts to that answer. If you were to look at the data right now, it'd actually be quite interesting or quite surprising that by and large, the majority of the BIP installations globally is actually happening in Europe. But the rate of change, where things are actually moving to, is clearly in the developing markets. And what I mean by developing markets, where the building activity is actually occurring. That is in Southeast Asia, pretty much all the Middle East region, and of course what's actually going on in the US. For our shareholders, have also been communicating that what's going on in Australia is also very exciting. And that's really just the acknowledgement of where the actual building and construction is actually happening. So as a business perspective, we spend a lot of our energies and our efforts in actually identifying licensed partners that can actually sell our products into those regions.
And can these solar facades be effectively integrated into residential housing? And what are the main challenges?
The simple answer, yes, of course. But there does need to be some pragmatism in terms of a traditional 3-4 bedroom house. Look, where our technology is not necessarily designed to compete with a solar roof that's actually on most of Australian houses around Australia. The energy output from the solar panels on a roof should, and by and large, does meet the energy requirements of a residential house. So there's just a degree of pragmatism about the deployment of our technology. Where our technology comes into vogue is actually in the infrastructure and built environment where a solar array is simply not appropriate or cannot be installed. And that can be things from public infrastructure, hospitals, to build high-rise construction, where clearly that sort of environment doesn't pay dividends. So in terms of the residential component, there's just a degree of pragmatism there. There's no point trying to compete in a market where there is an existing product that absolutely fits the needs, and from a cost-benefit analysis, perhaps doesn't stack up. Our energy certainly has not been focusing on markets where we don't think we can win. It's actually more about identifying markets that we can win, and this is how we're going to prosecute those opportunities.
Finally, what kind of return on investment or cost savings can homeowners or developers expect from installing solar facade systems?
As with most things in life, it depends. And I'm not trying to be flippant there, but you do need to take into consideration the climatic conditions in which the building's actually been operated in. if you were to put something out, our technology on the North and South Pole, it would have very different outcomes to, say, in Perth, for example. Perth is one of the sunniest cities in the world. So clearly there would be an opportunity to put our technology in Perth. But to answer your question, perhaps a little bit more specifically, we're looking at paybacks anywhere between, say, 4 to 7 years would actually be quite not unreasonable. And when you take in consideration not only the financial payback, but also the thermal payback, you also take into consideration is just as important. Something that may also be worthy of consideration is if we are inability to participate in identifying carbon credits for the owners of the property, that's another level of financial return that our building could actually have, which is simply not available to an existing building as it stands today. And I think that's perhaps part of my responsibility within the business to actually educate the market that we are trying to change the return profile of a building. And when we're operating in an environment where, literally 1 or 2% increase in the return profile of a building really does have a material impact on the return profile, it should be worthy of consideration. And I'm pleased to say we're having multiple conversations on those fronts across multiple markets.
Well, Earle, thank you so much for your time today and for all of your insights.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.